Hi, welcome back to Carl and Rick Talk Risk. Rick, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I normally have the sun angling down at me right now, so we've got clouds, so I'm not blinded. That's good.
And we're going
Uh,
back about what, 50 years in history there with the flag, but
I know, yeah. Old, very old flag passed down from my dad, so I don't know if he knows it's blocking the sun for me. Probably not its intended purpose, but anyway, gives a nice effect through the light. Um, Rick, I want to talk to you about something today because I know it's of interest to you. And the article surprised me, so I want to see if it surprises you as well. And and maybe once I give you a little more details, you and I can brainstorm how to improve this even more if it's applied elsewhere. But to give you the background, I was reading the Dutch financial press this morning, and I read about
that's
Estonia.
always a scary start. But
I
anyhow,
know it's how I like to start my days, with a scare. Um, I was reading about Estonia, and Estonia, the headline is very misleading, as I found out. The headline is, in Estonia, students are now obliged to use ChatGPT. And I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? What is this? But of course, I read the article. I'm not one of those people that just stop at the headline.
what
I
a
got into
keener.
I know. Thank you. I got into the article a little bit, and they gave a bit of history about Estonia, and that it is actually a very digital native country. It really pursued this after the fall of the Soviet era. They really focused on education and especially computer programming and coding, and and they have the most unicorns per person per capita in Europe. So to name a couple, because I think this kind of helps understand what they're trying to do here. Bolt for taxis. I don't know if it's in North America, but in Europe it's quite popular. Skype, of course. Wise, the money transfer service. So they've got a lot of fintechs here that have done very well. They're profitable, and coding is part of the education system. And back then, back in the 90s, it was called Tiger Leap. They nicknamed this revolution in education. And now what they're doing is Tiger Leap 2.0, known as AI Leap. Um, and here's where I think what they're doing is interesting, experimental, and could work. They're letting 20,000 students starting from September, aged 16 and 17, to be educated with the help of artificial intelligence. And they've signed a contract with ChatGPT, with is it OpenAI, to tailor the the model so that it helps them and that it helps them memorize things, and it encourages them towards an answer or helps them think through an answer but doesn't give them the answer. So a few things stuck out there that I really like. First, it's an experiment. It's only 20,000 students, right? It's not everywhere all at once, which
Isn't that like 100% of the what do you say, 16 and 17-year-olds of Estonia? Right?
20,000 could be a big
But
portion. Yeah.
population of Estonia is what, like a buck and a half or something?
I would have thought no more than 5 million.
Yeah, I think it's definitely less than that.
I think
But
Finland is 5 million, so Estonia is quite tiny. You
but
know,
hey, I know nothing about Estonia or next to nothing
yeah.
about Estonia, but the more I hear about Estonia, uh, the more I like. First off, I applaud them 100% for this.
Mm,
I I think that that's awesome.
yeah.
Okay, I truly do. Uh, I'm going to rant, and I have ranted, and I do rant, particularly with my own university students about AI. But I think that using AI in education uh, is an absolute must be. But
Mm,
I think that this fits in line with what little I do know about Estonia. Uh, Basically, in my opinion, and I could be totally wrong on this, and hopefully I'm not insulting anyone, but after they more or less broke away or fell away, or however you want to characterize it.
Mm.
Basically, they're a country that was starting with an absolutely clean sheet of paper,
Mm-hmm.
and they seized upon that opportunity, you know, basically becoming a digital country. And again, what little I know, it seems a little bit like Nirvana for 2025, and this just adds to the pile. I just don't know why they're not integrating it from you know kindergarten. Seriously, I'm not joking about that.
Oh, see, I thought we would find somewhere to disagree, and that's one of the things I liked about the program is it only starts from 16 to 17 because then it's not a dependency. It's not.
No, I
That's the
no, I think that, again, I will fight the dependency. I think we're probably in agreement on that.
yeah.
I see how dependent my university students are now on ChatGPT.
Mhm.
Okay. And it is a complete, I'll use the word disaster. Okay. Now, again, I'm painting things black and white when in reality they're gray. And some students are using ChatGPT incredibly intelligently,
Mhm.
and some of them are going completely brain dead using ChatGPT. I
Yeah.
think that we had a very clear global experiment with the iPhone and intellectual development, and it was a disaster. Okay,
Mm.
you ask any university professor in almost any field, and they will tell you that, you know, once students had basically 2 years experience with an iPhone and or similar, that intellectual development fell back 10 years.
Yeah.
So 16 is now the new six. Okay. In terms of intellectual development. And again, I don't mean to paint everyone like that, because, I'm very lucky at the university I teach at. We still have some awesome students. But again, we have some not so awesome students. And at other institutions, I've been fortunate enough to have interactions with, again, you see that breadth. And what it does is it's separating those into who can intelligently and creatively use the digital tools, such as smartphones, such as the internet, such as expert systems, such as things like 3D digital printing, which has kind of gone the way that kind of get lost in all the noise, which I still think is a major, major, major thing that we are ignoring at our peril, because there's a whole group of people doing really cool stuff that are just as transformative. But of course, AI is the acme of all of this. And I believe that AI can do uh, tremendous good in both individual and collective development, and it can do tremendous bad in individual and collective, uh, not the right word, but intellectual development.
Yeah.
Okay. My vocabulary is not good enough to think about, and my brain's way too slow to think of a better term to use right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I 100% applaud them.
Yeah. I think you've said on previous episodes that AI is both underutilized and overutilized, right?
And
And looking
underhyped and overhyped.
underhyped and overhyped, yeah. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, maybe they've recognized that it's overused in the academic setting without direction. And they're saying, listen, we're gonna harness its strength, but we're gonna target it. Like one thing I thought was very interesting is the teachers, the high school teachers are gonna be specially trained on how to use AI. So the students are going to have, mentorship in how they're going to use this tool, which I think is completely lacking. And they're going to be updated on their training every single month. So that's part of the training. And they also have a feedback loop. So, that's 20,000 kids. They're going to try to use it. They're going to see how it goes. They're going to loop back and readjust, which I think very smart. It's not going to all work. That's the point of an experiment. But then I look at the corporate setting and at risk management teams, and I think it's horribly underutilized. Maybe the quants are using it more, to to fit it into their models and validation and stuff. I think they are using it more, but in other areas of risk management, I think it's horribly underutilized. We don't have a lot of direction for the most part, and there's nobody experimenting and saying, okay, listen, we're going to try to use AI for this purpose, and we want to hear back how it goes. Tell us so that we can do it better next time, repurpose it to other things. I mean, I think it's starting, but you need a bit of direction. You need a bit of training on these things, not just, which I think is the approach in most corporations. Here's Copilot. Here's ChatGPT. Go ahead, have fun.
Okay, I'm gonna disagree with you on this.
Okay.
Okay. When you first brought up that one of the key points was that the teachers are getting training on this, my first thought was, oh no.
Okay.
Okay. Again, I'm going to bring back something that I've brought up before in a previous podcast is, I'm so old that I was around as a practitioner for the beginning of the internet. Like, I had a bitnet address, Google that. Okay. Yeah. And, because of my, one of my early professional roles, I got quite embedded into the who's who of the early internet world, what we knew as the World Wide Web and eventually the internet. And again, I apologize to our listeners because I'm repeating myself, but I think it bears repeating, is when it comes to AI, we are still at the you've got mail phase, which basically only people over the age of 45 will recognize. Mm. And what I learned from that experience is these were incredibly bright people. These were incredibly visionary people, and they had awesome visions. But the only thing that they got right was that the internet was going to be transformative. How it was going to be transformative, what it was going to become, what the implications of it were, everyone was totally off base. At best, they had a slight fuzzy glimmer of how things actually turned out. And by the way, the story for, the internet / connectivity writ large is still being written very much as we exist. So we still don't really know exactly how it's going to be right now. So when it comes to training, what are you training on? Okay, we basically have no freaking clue about the implications of this. I go back and I forget the TED Talk. It's a great TED Talk, but it was about in an African village that basically didn't have any connectivity. They literally put, a couple, I think it was a single computer screen with a keyboard in kind of a public kiosk, and just watched how these kids with zero training, not having any prior exposure or knowledge about a computer, would interact with it. It was brilliant. And so I say, hey, particularly with the kindergarten kids, let them loose on it. Mm-hmm. Okay? They're the ones that ultimately are going to be truly implementing AI. Mm-hmm. Okay? Or whatever the second, third, fourth, fifth generation. Actually, we're probably already in the fourth generation, at least, of AI. But they're going to be implementing the next generations of it. And you're right. We need experimenting. It's why I go back to as my old complexity thing. Main complexity strategy is try, learn, adapt. Training, even if the training is constantly updated, is kind of the antithesis of experimenting and to try, learn, adapt. Now, you want to keep abreast of the stories. You want to keep abreast of the ideas. But I think that particularly at this stage, we want to be very cautious about setting in place a set of stories about how it's supposed to be used.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of people my age that when they first opened up Excel still look for the /FR, because they're trained on Lotus 1, 2, 3. Okay. And, obviously I'm exaggerating on that, but they really haven't moved beyond their Lotus 1, 2, 3 commands. And thus they're exploring, using what the average person uses 5% of the power of Excel, or 5% of the power that they should be using for their tasks at hand. And that's what training does, is it locks you into a mindset. I say particularly with, and again, I would go to pre-junior high school students, let them loose, and let it fly. I'm going to give you one other example, though. It's very, very, very transformative in my education. In junior high school, I went to a junior high school that, to put it bluntly, was not on the right side of the tracks. Okay. And, there's a lot of underprivileged kids. And, I was, was not brought up rich by any stretch of imagination, but I lived on the better side of the tracks. And I grew up in a house full of books. The vast majority of students that I went to school with had none of that. And so what the school instituted was the first half hour of each day was reading. And what happened was, of course, all the boys in junior high school thought, we can read whatever we want. And you know exactly what junior high school boys are going to bring in for reading. That lasted about 3 days. And then after that, it was astonishing, the quality and the quantity of what was being consumed. And it was far better than the educational system would have given us. Again, I probably should say this out loud, but I think the educational system would be far better off if 90% of educational experts were sent on a one-way mission to Mars. But but let the kids explore. They're the future. Okay. Yeah. You're the middleman. I'm the guy, that, wears the white beard on New Year's Eve. Okay. So yeah, probably no one should be listening to me, but let it evolve organically. Don't try to set up systems is my way to think about it. And so in corporations, you want to put up guardrails. Okay. In an organizational context, you want to put up guardrails, but let people see what they can do. Let people do the Google equivalent of, having Freaky Fridays where they can do whatever they feel like with AI.
Yeah. No, I think I largely agree. Although, just on personal experience, I see some people that type in a haphazard prompt, don't get what they want, and they're like, this is crap. And I'm like, well,
yeah, but the person next to them says, well, let's try another prompt. Yeah. Everyone knows that you get crap from your first prompt. If you don't know that by now, let's put it this way. You shouldn't have a license to own a computer, and you certainly should not have a license to use AI. Yeah. Okay. If you're that slow at learning the lessons of AI, then, basically no training program is going to help you.
That's quite true. Yeah. There is a learning curve to it, and you do need to get into that to get something out of it. But yeah, I think it's an interesting program. I think there's lessons for risk management teams in here, especially the experimentation, feedback loops, encouragement to go and try, because I think risk management is a little bit conservative when it comes to these things. So
now, if I could add one other thing, though, and again, sure. I'm sorry, I'm going to climb on my complexity horse, trigger warning to everyone watching, but AI basically eliminates the need for complicated knowledge and complicated thinking. And what it does is it dramatically frees up us to be humans, to be humanists. And if you do this, if you use AI as a way to, memorizing, your times tables up to, 24 by 24, whatever the standard is, awesome. But if that is replaced by reading Shakespeare, which by the way, I got up early this morning and reread King Lear, albeit in a modern English translation. If it means that you are thinking about social problems, or I'll bring up anthropology again, um, and you're thinking of these humanist issues, if you're focusing less on the known STEM components of knowledge and
Mhm.
more on the still evolving humanist components of knowledge, hey, we'll all be massively ahead. If you're just doing it, what's the 42nd element in the periodic table, then it's crap.
Yeah, yeah, sounds good. Yeah, there's a lot to learn. I'll put this article um, in the post. Some people might need to translate it from Dutch. Good luck. Uh,
My Dutch ain't great.
yeah. But yeah, good chatting, Rick. I'm sure we'll revisit these topics again, but it's just another interesting new way that it's being used, and it's good to see experimentation happening around it. So until next time, cheerio.